Good afternoon, Paul. It's Monday, the 13th of March. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 16 issues. In North Asia, we covered 6, and for the Australasia and Pacific Islands, we covered 7. In South Asia, we covered 17 issues, plus the major issues in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'm back in Thailand now. Please go ahead.
Also, in Papua New Guinea, police have warned of increased criminality in Leh and Morobe province. Last week, 2 foreigners were held by a criminal gang for some time. The gang tried to force them to make some banking transactions. They were released after. The police have also called on residents to use security firms who can collaborate with the police.
Okay, look, that's very interesting. Of course, Leh's known as a hotbed. It used to be one of the most wonderful, beautiful jungle cities, but it's the second largest city in PNG. It's on the mainland, on the other side of the Stanley Ranges to Port Moresby. What's of particular interest here is the police actually know they're outgunned and outworked. The real issue is the risk paradigm means that security firms don't have the same amount of firepower as the bandits and the rascals and the tribal guys that come in for financial gains. And so, unfortunately, companies don't realise they're playing on a rugby field, but being told to go and get some badminton rackets to confront the All Blacks with, and that's the problem, that just this risk paradigm and the security available isn't set. So you really need to use what is there very prudently. But of course, security firms, unarmed, or if they are armed, they only have shotguns up against assault rifles. So there's a real mismatch. Now, that's not to say that you can't take other measures, but some of those other measures are, you need dogs. You also need a response to be very quick, and that response needs to come from an entity that's both proven and has a deterrent. And of course, that deterrent needs to be applicable to the risk environment, not to legalities in America and Australia. Okay, thanks for the heads up on that. Startling again.
Thanks, Paul. In Malaysia, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission detained 4 people, including one of its own officials, for a corruption case with regards to the COVID-19 stimulus packages. Now, this comes days after the former Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. He was also charged with corruption over the COVID pandemic funds.
And look, I mean, that's just Malaysia. You know, they advertise themselves as truly Asia, but I'm not sure that they wanted that connotation of corruption to be in their tourism bylines. Very, very sad, given Najib's $1 billion in a personal account, another prime minister. And not only are they stealing, but they're stealing from poor people that can't. One would really hope that COVID funds are used to make the health of their people resilient, not their own bank accounts wealthy. It's frankly a hideous reflection on one of the downsides of what otherwise is a beautiful Malaysian culture. Obviously, that's an ugly, hairy wart right above the nose where everyone can see. Thank you.
All right. In Thailand, the election commission has warned political parties against promoting populist policies without disclosing the sources for financing these policies. It said that it will fine parties up to 500,000 baht for if they violate this. This is after the United Thai Nation Party unveiled a policy which involved cash handouts to attract voters, and other parties have also been talking about raising the minimum wage and other kind of populist policies without necessarily saying how they will manage so.
Well, look, this is very, very interesting, and it comes on the back of the whole Thaksin family popularity was based on Esquillian promises to appeal to voters that really didn't understand. Wasn't something that was helping the nation. It was popularist. It was offering money. Nothing was sustainable. And then the whole buy rice off the farmers at ridiculous prices and put it into warehouses and can't sell it without making massive losses. So there's a real history to this particular issue in Thailand. So hopefully the Election Commission will stand by itself. It's interesting because, of course, the United Thai Party now has a former Deputy Prime Minister. Prayut said he's going to join it. From a strategic viewpoint, I would have thought Prayut's much, much better than that. But perhaps he feels he needs to match each time the votes in the other party's tack. So we'll see how this unfolds and whether the Election Commission shows some hardships and hardness in dealing with this particular matter. When you think about the amount of money in politics in Thailand, 500,000 bahts, not a lot of money, so it's not much of a deterrent in terms of how much they lose by making vague promises if they get fined versus how much they can make if they get power. Thanks.
Thanks. Moving over to South Asia, Paul. In Pakistan, Imran Khan's party will protest in Lahore today. A protest last week turned violent. Now, this is part of their campaigns ahead of the provincial elections in Punjab, which will be held on the 30th of April.
Okay, fantastic. Imran Khan's starting to surprise everyone. I thought he would have worn thin and faded by now, but I guess as a former all-rounder famous for steaming in on hot days on dry pitches in the subcontinent, we have to start taking note now that he may be playing on well into the metaphorical fifth day. Thanks for that.
Right. In India, the National Investigation Agency carried out raids in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra over the weekend. This was against suspected Islamic State operatives in the country.
Okay, be interested to see what unfolds from those arrests. Thanks very much. Those raids may bring up some interesting intelligence. If they do, elevate that straight to me with a phone call, please.
Sure, will do, Paul. In Bangladesh, over 150 people were injured in clashes between locals and students in Rajshahi over the weekend. Now, this incident was over a small bus fare issue between a student and bus driver that flared up and escalated. Students blocked the rail tracks and highways, and protests were held by locals and students.
Okay, look, I know more or less where that is, sort of 250 odd k's sort of west along the Padma River, but I'd like to just see which of our clients could possibly be affected there. So if you and the team could just let me know that, and if necessary, we need to clarify any footprints in there with a couple of the clients, okay?
Sure, will do, Paul. Moving over to the Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions. So Russia said that its air defense systems downed 4 missiles within its borders. Russia has accused Ukraine of these attacks that usually go unclaimed. This is a border region.
Okay, thanks.
In Georgia, the Prime Minister called on Ukraine's President Zelensky to refrain from interfering in the political situation in Georgia. In the last week, anti-government protests have emerged against a plan to implement a controversial law, and Zelensky has tried to frame this as a pro and anti-Russia incident.
Okay, thank you.
And in Moldova, thousands of people protested yesterday against the government, which is a pro-Western government. They're against some of the statements the government has been making with regards to the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. The US has pledged to support the Moldovan government, and Moldova has also accused Russia of plotting to overthrow the government.
Well, sadly, both Georgia and Moldova are looking like an exact reflection of what happened in the Ukraine, where both internal and external parties, and by which I mean foreign governments, particularly from the West, helped undermine it as much as Russia did. And look, the real sad thing here is that Georgia and Moldova, and indeed Romania, could end up with a security paradigm not dissimilar to Ukraine's. And despite what Zelensky's popularity states, the current situation in Ukraine could not be described as something that's healthy for that country. It's very, very unlikely it's ever going to go back to the country it was before, when it had issues, but it didn't have, 300,000 war fatalities. It didn't have totally destroyed assets. I think we need to really look very closely to what's occurring in the capital markets, and also China basically offloading US dollars, buying gold. On top of that, we've got the currency or the financial bank issues showing in the loss of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of stock value in major banks following the SDV situation there last Friday. And even more startling is the growth of BRICS, and also the development of China to mandate an agreement involving Iran, India, Saudi Arabia, but also expanding BRICS, and Russia having an option now to sell its energy elsewhere, and Europe no longer having an option and thinking, we'll join in this fiasco because then Russia will come crawling back to get to sell us their energy. And it hasn't really panned out that way. So, I mean, there's some significant issues happening in the financial sector. So have Rugger have a close look at those with me, because these are often things that can anticipate the future security paradigms. Another particular thing of note is the inversion of the bonds, whereby the returns you get on short-term bonds are higher than long-term. Normally in a financial setting, that if you're going to give someone your money for 30 years, you get a higher return, but the fact that you can get a shorter return means that there's all kinds of machinations and analysis we can base on what that means, but it normally means pending heavy recession, if not and or war. So there's obviously some startling comments coming out of some of the US lawmakers have been to Taiwan and come back and spoke about they know what war looks like and we're at war with China. So there's a lot of people in very high positions of power, either with a very loose mouth or not understanding of how China may interpret these accusations. So we're in a really precarious position, but we do need to take the time to have a good look at those market movements, who's buying gold, not buying gold, the bond inversions, and also particularly what China is doing in terms of locking up energy supply and trade. Also the power and the size of Russia and Chinese trade. It's the biggest it's ever been. It's gone up 30%. So the anticipated we're going to bully Russia and China into doing what we want, utilising Ukraine and Taiwan as the excuse, maybe somewhat not have rolled the way intelligence agencies and governments in the Western world thought it may have. All right, thank you. Excellent brief.
Thanks, Paul, for all those inputs. Anything else from you?
No, that's great. Thanks.